Hey YouTube, how's it going? This is Nostalgiaholic. Welcome to the episode. We are going to talk a little bit about these guys right here. These were the Cabbage Patch Kids. These were hugely popular in the 80s and are even still around today. I'll explain that in a minute. Now, the thing to understand about these Cabbage Patch Kids, funny story, this is actually my wife's. I was at her house and found it laying around. I'm like, you know what, I gotta do a video. These things were classic. Now, they date back until 1978 actually, and it was Xavier Roberts came out with this line of dolls and he called them Little People. And he loosely based it off a book that he wrote and stuff like that, which I believe was published and stuff like that. But they initially changed the name to Cabbage Patch Kids. Now, the whole idea was these babies were born in this cabbage patch. Okay, so I guess it was the whole idea was where kids always ask where babies come from. They kind of say it's from the Cabbage Patch. So basically, in Newsweek released an article in the early 80s, and from then it just blew up. Coleco purchased the right to make these bad boys here. And what's interesting about Coleco is they carried the brand from 1982 to 1989, and overall it was a very successful line of toys for Coleco. In fact, it carried them through most of the way of the 80s. Obviously, a lot of you guys know Coleco also produced the Colecovision, which made a whole bunch of games for it's a game system, and they actually released the Atom computer, which ended up killing them. So they sold the rights to the Cabbage Patch line and sold it to Hasbro. Now Hasbro produced the Cabbage Patch Kids for a couple years, and they eventually sold it to Mattel. Mattel carried it for a couple while, and sold it to Toys R Us, and Toys R Us carried it for a little while, and now it's under Jakks Pacific, which they're still available today. And even for the 25th anniversary release, Jakks Pacific started releasing some retro dolls, which is pretty cool. Now, the reason you know if you have an original Coleco doll or not, because the original ones have a very hard head like this, and they're cloth bodies. Now other ones have vinyl heads, so a little bit more soft. So this is the original one of the original dolls. Now one thing also was really cool, they came up with a really cool casing, and they had birth certificates when you got them as well. So they have different names, different birth certificates. So let's take a closer look at this one specifically. Let's open this up. Now they also had different clothes you could purchase for them, which is pretty cool. Again, I owned one back in the day, but I've lost it way back. I wasn't too hugely into these growing up, but we're gonna get a little personal here and see what somewhere it says Coleco here. Okay, if you look on the very back, it says copyright 1978 to 1982. Let's see if you can see that right. And it pretty much says original appreciation artwork, manufacturing Coleco Industries. And now Coleco, in case you guys didn't know, stands for Connecticut Leather Company. They initially sold leather, and then they obviously went into toys, and they made some video games back in the day as well. So pretty cool. I mean, I love the detail of these dolls back in the day. It doesn't weigh too much. They also had ones that were very controversial, because they had ones that came out in the early 90s that actually ate food. They had ones that talk, and the ones that ate food were cool because you actually put it into the mouth and then like basically come out the back, which was kind of interesting. They had ones that talked as well. This one is just one of the original ones. So I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you had a sister, if you guys even collected these back in the day as well, they were targeted towards women primarily, girls and all that, I should say. But you know, guys had them too. They did have. I remember mine had. It was a guy. It was a boy, and he had hair and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to show you a quick game for the Colecovision called Cabbage Patch Kids. Another interesting thing, side note I want to make is that Coleco actually sued, or I'm sorry, Xavier, the founder of Cabbage Patch Kids, sued Topps, because at the time Topps released Garbage Pail Kids. If you guys remember those toys, those cards I showed you earlier, and it was kind of a spoof on these Cabbage Patch Kids, and so essentially they kind of sued them for copyright infringements. I'm not sure, they must have settled out of court, because Garbage Pail Kids are still around, but I think they settled out of court for that. But let's take a closer look at the video game on the Colecovision. It's really interesting. Okay, thanks guys. Okay guys, before I show you any game footage of Cabbage Patch Kids, the video game, I do want to show you the card itself. Now if you were to see this back in the day, you're like, okay, this is kind of lame. It's Cabbage Patch Kids Adventure in the Park, and it's for the Colecovision and Atom computer, so it plays on both. Now, amazingly enough, this game is actually pretty fun. It plays a lot like Pitfall, so if you're a big fan of Pitfall, let's take a closer look at this and you'll see for yourself. Thanks, guys. Adventure in the Park is made by Konami, which is interesting enough. There's 10 stages for each level. The 3 characters on the bottom right, you see your lives. Kind of like Pitfall. And the object is to cross each path. There's not really any enemies, just obstacles you have to pass. can get fruit for extra points. There's a time limit. Pretty irrelevant at the beginning stage of the game anyway. It gets much faster as you go on. This game reminds me a lot like Smurfs game for the Colecovision, although jumping is much easier in this game because you actually push a button to do it rather than pushing up. It's always hard to jump up and forward at the same time while using these Coleco controllers. Nice. It's all about timing. Cabbage Patch Kids do not like to fall, that's for sure. That's definitely given. Nice. You get a time bonus and extra life, which is great. Much needed for that. Oh, the 3D background effects, definitely really cool looking. You gotta watch these falling spider webs, whatever they are, mothballs. Oh, how did I make that jump? Yeah, make sure you're low enough. If you do it too high, then you die, which is, man, brutal. There we go. You get these stages that really are kind of pointless, to be honest with you. And that is game over. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, take care.